My husband's mistress sent me a blackmail video. She had no idea what I was already holding. The video was 11 seconds long. Hotel room, champagne flutes catching the light, Nathan's hand on her waist, the specific way he touched her, proprietary, practiced, and her face turned toward the camera with the particular smile of a woman who had thought about this moment before she filmed it. 11 seconds. I watched it once, put my phone face down on the penthouse duvet, and looked at the ceiling of a room I had booked for myself at 11:47 p.m. the night before, after the front desk clerk named Rylan had changed every billing agreement on 5 suites, while his eyes went carefully, professionally blank. Then her message arrived. Divorce him quietly, or I send this to everyone you know. I picked up the phone again. I read the message twice. I set the phone back down. My hands did not shake. My eyes did not water. I noticed both of those things the way you notice weather, clinically, from a distance, and I filed them away under the growing category of things that are interesting about this situation, because here is what she did not know, could not have known, had no way of accounting for. I had been quietly, methodically, and with considerable legal assistance, building a case for 7 months. Not against her. I didn't know about her yet, not with certainty, but against Nathan, against the marriage, against the specific architecture of a life I had funded, maintained, and slowly come to understand was never actually mine. She thought she was sending me a threat. She had sent me a gift. I smiled at the ceiling of the Crystal Cove Resort penthouse, $1,200 a night, charged to my corporate card, the only card in this hotel that still worked. And I thought, of all the people to try to blackmail, you picked the one who already has an attorney on retainer. Then I picked up my phone and called Vesper Crane. I need to go back, because the video was not the beginning. The video was closer to the end. I had been married to Nathan Ellery for 9 years when any of this happened. 9 years, which is long enough to know someone's sleep patterns, and short enough to still be surprised by who they turn out to be. We met at a conference in Denver. I was presenting, he was attending, and he spent 20 minutes after my talk asking questions that were actually, I now understand, a very polished form of attention. Nathan was good at attention. He deployed it the way other people deploy cologne, enough to be noticeable, not so much that you could name what you were responding to. My name is Emma Sorrell. I run the regional operations division of a mid-sized logistics firm, which means I manage a $40 million budget, a team of 63 people, and enough process complexity that most of my social life has, over the years, been quietly deprioritized in favor of spreadsheets. I say this not to make myself sound admirable. It's just context. I am very good at systems. I am very good at managing resources, tracking variables, anticipating failure points. I am, as Nathan told me approximately 40 times during our marriage, too transactional and emotionally unavailable, and cold in a way that makes everyone around you exhausted. He said those things. I wrote them down in my journal. I went to therapy about them. I'm getting ahead of myself. Nathan worked in private equity fundraising, which sounds more specific than it is. He raised money from investors for funds managed by other people. It was a role built entirely on relationships, lunches, golf, the slow accumulation of trust over expensive meals, and he was genuinely good at it. He made good money. Not as much as I did, but good money. The problem, which I only began to understand in year 7, was that his expenses had gradually, almost imperceptibly, exceeded his income, and the gap had been filled by me without my explicit awareness. Nathan's mother, Gretchen Ellery, 58, with the bone structure of a woman who had been pretty and knew it and had never found a graceful way to age out of it, had 4 children and strong opinions about which of her sons had married beneath them. Nathan was her favorite. I was, in Gretchen's taxonomy, acceptable. I had the income, the corporate title, the ability to plan and execute a $20,000 family vacation without visible strain. What I lacked, in her view, was warmth. That particular warmth, she once said, as if warmth were a specific frequency she could detect and I was simply not broadcasting it. His sister Rachel was 29 and had the cheerful cruelty of someone who had never been seriously uncomfortable and didn't understand why other people made such a production of it. She drove a car whose payments, I would discover later, had been coming out of our joint account for 14 months under a line item labeled insurance adjustment. I had planned the Crystal Cove vacation for 6 months, 5 suites, 14 family members, spa packages, dining credits, a sunset dinner reservation on the rooftop terrace. The resort sat on a bluff above the ocean and cost approximately what some people earn in a year, and what I had decided after months of Gretchen's comments about how Emma never made time for the family to simply absorb, a gesture, an attempt at warmth I didn't naturally produce. Nathan told me his bonus was tied up in a compliance review. I put my corporate card down. It was always tied up. The first sign that something was wrong beyond the usual wrong had come 4 months before the resort, in February, when I noticed a charge on our joint checking account for $340 at a hotel in our city. Not a resort, not a work trip. A hotel 12 minutes from our house. I pulled up the date. Nathan had been home that night, or he'd said he was. I'd been traveling for work and hadn't been there to confirm. I told myself it was a mistake, a double charge, a system error. I put a note in the back of my mind labeled, check this, and moved on, because I had a product integration audit the following week, and my capacity for additional complexity was genuinely limited. The second sign came in March. Nathan's phone, left unlocked on the kitchen counter while he showered, lit up with a message from a contact saved as T. Jim. The preview read, "Last night was," and then it cut off. I didn't touch the phone. I read the preview. I walked to the window and looked at the backyard for approximately 90 seconds. Then I made coffee. I am a person who needs evidence before I act. This is not coldness. It is the discipline of someone who has been wrong before and paid for it. So I did not confront Nathan. I did not go through his phone. I did something that felt, at the time, disproportionate, and which turned out to be the most important thing I did in the first half of that year. I called Vesper Crane. Vesper had been my attorney for 6 years across 3 different professional matters: a contract dispute, a non-compete review, a real estate transaction, and she had the quality I value most in a professional. She told me exactly what she saw, with no softening. She was 44, had been in family law for 16 years, and had in that time developed what she described to me once as a very high tolerance for situations that seem complicated but are actually quite simple if you look at the right documents. "You want to document before you decide," she said in our first call about this. "That's correct. What do you have?" I told her about the hotel charge, the text preview, the bonus that was always tied up. "Pull everything you have access to," she said. "Joint accounts, tax returns, any shared financial platforms. Don't move anything yet. Just look." I looked. What I found over the following 6 weeks required a second opinion. I brought in Caspian Reed, a forensic accountant Vesper recommended, who had spent 21 years doing financial analysis in divorce and fraud cases, and who, when I walked him through what I'd found, said with the flatness of a man who had stopped being surprised by people in year 3. "How long have you been aware of this?" "Aware of what specifically?" I said. "All of it," he said. He spread the documents across the conference table in Vesper's office. 3 years of bank statements, credit card records, the joint investment account, and showed me, line by line, what Nathan had been doing with money I thought was being saved. The car payments to Rachel, $100 a month for 14 months, $17,000. A personal loan to his brother that had never been repaid, $23,000. And the hotel charges. Not 1, not 2, but 11 over 18 months. All local, all weeknight, all under $400. The tidy, careful geometry of an affair conducted by someone who understood that the trick was to stay below the threshold of obvious. The total, $94,000 in 7 years. Redirected, invisible, gone. My mouth was dry when Caspian finished. I kept my hands flat on the table. I looked at the numbers. "Is this actionable?" I asked Vesper. "In the context of a divorce proceeding, absolutely," she said. "Financial dissipation of marital assets. We document everything. You file when you're ready." "I'm not ready yet," I said. She nodded. She'd heard that before. "Okay, we build the file. You tell me when." I walked out of that office in April and drove home and made dinner and sat across from Nathan at the kitchen table and listened to him talk about a fund he was pitching in Dallas, and I put pasta on my fork, and I thought, not yet, May, then June. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Odile Fos, 12 years in domestic investigation, who had the kind of face that was specifically designed to be forgotten, which she had told me was her greatest professional asset. She confirmed within 3 weeks that the contact saved as T. Jim was a woman named Tara, who worked in Nathan's building, was 31, and had been meeting him approximately once a week at rotating locations for what Odile estimated, based on pattern and duration, was at least 8 months. Odile's documentation included dates, locations, and vehicle records. It did not include photographs. I had specifically told her I didn't need photographs, because I didn't need them. I had everything else. I filed the evidence packet with Vesper. I booked Crystal Cove. I told no one. Here is what I told myself at the time, and I want to be honest about this. I wasn't planning anything, not consciously. I didn't arrive at Crystal Cove with a strategy mapped out. What I had was information, and a set of decisions that were ready to be made, and the particular patience of someone who has been managing complexity long enough to know that the right moment will announce itself. I just didn't expect it to announce itself the way it did. We arrived at Crystal Cove on a Friday, 14 family members across 5 suites. The resort was everything the photographs had promised. Bluff views, bougainvillea on every terrace, that specific coastal light that makes everything look slightly more beautiful than it is. I had the itinerary printed. I had the dining reservations confirmed. I had Gretchen's allergy list, tree nuts, shellfish, and something she described as an issue with certain stone fruits that has never been formally diagnosed, communicated to the kitchen in advance. Nathan was pleasant that first day, attentive even. He held my hand briefly on the terrace before dinner, which was unusual enough that I noticed it, filed it under the wrong category, and almost felt something soften. Almost. Saturday was the day it happened. The family had been at the pool. I excused myself mid-afternoon to use the restroom, 5 minutes, maybe less. And when I came back through the lobby, the cluster of chairs where our group had been was empty. The luggage we'd been moving between lounges was still there. Everything else was gone. I stood there for a moment, looking at the empty chairs, the abandoned tote bags, the specific horrible silence of a space that had recently held people and now didn't. My phone buzzed. "Nathan, relax, Emma. It's just a joke. Maybe we'll save you dessert if you find us." Laughing emojis. A photo of the whole family on the rooftop, cocktails raised, sunset behind them, every face bright and open and entirely untroubled. Without me. I have tried since then to accurately describe what that felt like, and I keep failing because the words I reach for are too dramatic, and the reality of it was somehow worse than dramatic. It was mundane. It was the complete, casual mundanity of people people who had simply not thought about me at all. Not cruelty as a decision, cruelty as an absence. The kind that doesn't even register as cruelty to the people doing it. The front desk clerk, Rylan, 24 or so, the careful face of someone professionally trained not to react, had watched the whole thing. His eyes, when I met them, held a pity I didn't want and couldn't afford. I walked to the desk. Rylan, I said, all 5 suites are under my name, correct? Yes, ma'am. Suites, dining, spa, all of it. Make some changes for me. I told him what I needed. His eyes went through several adjustments. His professionalism held. He made the changes. The lobby remained quiet. My hands remained steady. I walked to the elevator, went to the penthouse I had moved myself into, sat down on the edge of the bed, and allowed myself exactly 12 minutes of feeling everything I had been holding at a distance for 7 months. Then I opened my laptop. Then I called Vesper Crane. It's time, I said. She didn't ask for context. She said, I'll file in the morning. My phone had been exploding with texts since the rooftop photo. Gretchen, Emma, don't sulk. The fish is wonderful. Rachel, it was funny. Stop being dramatic. Nathan, at midnight, where the hell are you? This is pathetic. I let him call 3 times. The 4th time, I answered. You were laughing at me, I said. Not with me. There's a difference. You make everything about money, he said. His voice had the edge of someone who had rehearsed a grievance so many times it had become reflex. You're cold, Emma. No wonder nobody wants you around. I had heard that sentence, in various configurations, for years. My therapist, Dr. Ren Soloway, who had spent 18 years in individual and couples counseling, and who had said to me in our last session, very quietly, Emma, I need you to consider that the emotional unavailability in this marriage may not be originating with you, had helped me understand what I was hearing when Nathan said that, what it was for, what it was meant to do. You're right, I said. I am cold. I hung up. I moved my savings to a private account. Not all of it, just mine. The portion Caspian had clearly delineated as separate property. I changed every shared password. I transferred the insurance policies. I sent Vesper the confirmation she needed. Then, because I could not sleep and needed something to do with my hands, I ordered room service. Seared salmon, a glass of the good burgundy, a small arrangement of flowers I hadn't asked for, but the resort had sent anyway as a penthouse amenity. And I sat at the window looking at the ocean until it was pale enough to call morning. At 6:45 a.m., I dressed. Cream linen suit. The one I wear when I need to feel like a version of myself that is beyond being rattled. Black coffee from the room. I was in the lobby by 7:02. They came down at 7:31. I watched them appear from the elevator in a loose group. Gretchen first, with the expression of someone ready to have a word with management. Then Rachel, then Nathan's brother Cord with his wife Amelie, then the rest, then Nathan. He saw me before he reached the front desk. His face did the calculation I'd watched it do 1,000 times. Quick, invisible to anyone who didn't know him, and landed on anger, because anger had always worked before. It was not going to work this morning. Gretchen reached the desk first. There's been a mistake. My spa key isn't working. None of the room keys are working. No mistake, I said. I said it quietly, standing to one side, and the lobby went through a subtle acoustic shift. 14 people recalibrated their attention. Nathan's voice when he found it. Emma, put your card down. Now. I looked at him. He had the certainty of a man who had never, in 9 years, been told no by the person who was always holding the card. The billing agreement is canceled, I said. Your room's expired 10 minutes ago. Rylan behind the desk cleared his throat with the commitment of a man who had been briefed and was ready. The outstanding balance, last night's rooftop dinner, spa charges, minibar from 4 suites, is $6,420. The number landed in the lobby like a physical object. Gretchen's expression cycled through phases. Then she laughed. That laugh, the one she deployed when something inconvenient needed to be socially minimized. You're doing this over a prank? I'm doing this, I said, because you took $20,000 of my money, left me alone in the lobby with the luggage, and sent laughing emojis. With what money? Nathan said. He had moved closer. Too close, the way he did when he wanted to use his size as punctuation. Your money? I work too, Emma. Everything we have is... With what money? I said, and something in my voice landed differently than usual, because the lobby went very still. Your imaginary bonus? Or the money you've been pulling from our joint account to cover Rachel's car payments for the past 14 months? Rachel made a sound. Nathan went the color of something recently bleached. You check the accounts? He said, low. I checked everything, Nathan. I opened my bag. The envelope had been there since Thursday. Prepared by Vesper, printed in her office, sealed by me. I checked the hotel charges. I checked the loan to Cord that never came back. I checked the 14 months of transactions that Caspian Reed, that's a forensic accountant, Nathan, not someone I'm in a relationship with, I want to be clear, spent 6 weeks documenting. I held the envelope out. He didn't take it. I set it on the desk in front of him. Apartment keys, garage remote, a copy of the filing my attorney submitted this morning, which you'll be served with formally next week, and a note explaining that the restraining order, which restricts you from the property, has been entered as of 9 a.m. today. Your house? Gretchen behind him, her voice pitched into something shrill. He lives there. The mortgage is in my name, I said. The down payment was mine. He was a guest for 9 years, and I was very hospitable. Security, 2 men in blazers who Rylan had quietly called 10 minutes ago, bless him, materialized on either side of the desk area, not touching anyone, just present. Nathan's voice broke, then came back harder. Nobody else will put up with you, Emma. You know that? You'll be alone. You'll deserve it. I stopped walking. I turned around one final time. I looked at him. This man I I had married, this man whose family I had fed and vacationed and gifted and absorbed, this man who had stood in a hotel room 40 floors below me the night before, with his hand on another woman's waist, while I sat in a penthouse I'd paid for watching the ocean, and I felt something that was not anger and not grief and not the cold satisfaction I'd expected. It was closer to clarity, the particular clarity of a decision that has been made and cannot be unmade and is, at its core, correct. Good, I said. I walked into the sunlight. The car was a black SUV from the resort's car service. The driver's name was Tomasz, and he did not attempt conversation, which I deeply appreciated. The ocean was visible on the left side as we climbed the access road, and I kept my eyes on it. My phone buzzed. Not Nathan, not Gretchen, not Rachel. Unknown number. We need to talk. I know things about Nathan that will destroy him completely, and I think you're going to want to hear them. I read it twice. Then I thought about the video that had arrived at 11:23 the previous night. 11 seconds, champagne, Nathan's hand, the smile that had been performed for my benefit, and I thought about the message underneath it. Divorce him quietly, or I send this to everyone you know. I had not responded to that message. I had shown it to Vesper via screenshot at midnight, and she had said, extortion, useful, save everything. And now this number, different contact. I know things that will destroy him completely. Nathan's world, I was beginning to understand, was larger and more complicated than I had imagined, even after everything I thought I'd found. I had the financial trail. I had Odil's investigation. I had Vesper's filing and Caspian's accounting and Dr. Soloway's 18 years of professional observation. And apparently there was more. I looked at the message for a long moment. Tomasz made a smooth right turn. The ocean disappeared from view. I typed back 2 words. Tell me. I am going to tell you what happened next, but not yet. Not in this version of the story. Because the thing I want you to understand, the thing that got lost in all of it, in the lobby and the video, and the forensic accounting, and the $6,000 unpaid bill, and the restraining order and the unknown number with its offer of further destruction, is what I felt sitting in that car. Not triumph, not relief, not even the cold satisfaction I'd been quietly stockpiling for 7 months. What I felt was very simple, and I have not been able to improve on the words for it, so I'll just use the ones I had. I did not do a single thing I'm ashamed of. Nathan had told me 40-something times over 9 years that I was cold, transactional, that the way I moved through the world was too precise, too documented, too lacking in the warmth that real intimacy required. Maybe he was right. Maybe the instinct that sent me to Vesper's office in April, that made me hire Odile, that made me keep the hotel charge records and take the screenshots and have the envelope printed and sealed and in my bag by Thursday. Maybe that instinct was cold. Or maybe it was just what it looks like when someone who has been told she's not enough decides, very quietly, to become undeniable. The phone buzzed again. A long message this time. I read it slowly, twice, and then I looked out the window at the road unrolling ahead of us, and I thought, Nathan has been building a much bigger fire than I knew, and he handed every match to someone who eventually handed them to me. Vesper answered on the second ring. I need to add a meeting to this week, I said. There's new information. From who? Someone who knows him. Someone who's been waiting for the right moment. I watched a hawk arc over a hillway scrub. Apparently this is it. Vesper was quiet for a second. Then, in the voice she used when things were going to get interesting, send me everything. I forwarded the message. I put the phone face up on my knee and watched the road and breathed slowly in through my nose and out through my mouth, the way Dr. Soloway had taught me. The way you breathe when you're not panicking, but you want to stay ahead of the possibility. I was not panicking. I was, for the first time in a very long time, entirely calm. Because here is the thing about building a careful, documented, methodical case against the life you've been living. When it's done, when the filing is in, and the accounts are separated, and the keys are in an envelope and you're in the car and moving away, there is nothing left to brace against. The bracing is over. What comes next isn't justice exactly. It's something quieter than that. It's the first morning of a different kind of accounting, one where every asset is yours, every line item is honest, and the only person responsible for the balance is you. Nathan had told me nobody else would put up with me. I had said good, and I had meant it, not as a wound, as a fact. I didn't need anyone to put up with me. I needed, finally, to stop putting up with everyone else. 6 months later, Vesper finalized the settlement. Nathan's assets, what remained of them, after Caspian's accounting laid bare the full $94,000 in dissipated marital funds, were split with the precision the documentation demanded. The car payments were recovered as separate property claims. The apartment stayed mine. The forensic accounting became Exhibit C in the proceedings, and the unknown numbers information became, in Vesper's words, the kind of thing that accelerates timelines considerably. I will not tell you what that information was, not because it isn't dramatic. It is, but because Nathan's story is his own ruin, and I've carried enough of his weight already. What I will tell you is this. Rylan, the front desk clerk at Crystal Cove, sent me a letter 2 months after, handwritten on resort stationery, which I suspect he technically wasn't supposed to use. He said he hoped I was doing okay. He said he'd seen a lot of things behind that desk, but watching me walk out into the sunlight that morning was one he thought about. I framed it. It's on the wall in my office, next to my corporate card holder and a photograph of the ocean. And Dr. Ren Soloway, in our last session before I told her I thought I was ready to be done with weekly sessions, said something I've kept. Emma, the coldest thing you ever did was stay warm for people people who were using it against you. She paused. The bravest thing you did was stop.